All right, Ballzzz in the air, 4ZZZ.
That was a little bit of Mitch Please.
It was.
With a 3-day collar hangover.
Yeah. Had them, but take the word cola out.
Now, we are joined right here, right now, by a gentleman who I would describe as the voice of Queensland Pickleball. Dylan Kimlin, welcome.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Now, pickleball is a sport that probably a number of our listeners may never have heard of. I myself had never actually had the pleasure of watching pickleball live until last weekend. And in terms of trying to describe it in terms of things that our listeners may be familiar with, the thought occurred to me that it's something like traditional tennis and table tennis had a child and the offspring was pickleball. Or if you want to think about playing table tennis, enlarging the table to a point where the players can actually be standing on the table, and you have something that's now approaching pickleball.
Yep, I reckon that's pretty spot on.
It's a phenomenal sport. I mean, indoor and outdoor, massive growth, and I can understand why, having watched it. Paddles instead of rackets? Do you call them paddles?
Yeah, so essentially they're like you kind of nailed it with your table tennis analogy. But essentially the paddles are giant table tennis paddles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rectangular in shape?
Rectangular to oval, I guess. There are dimensions that they have to sort of adhere to, but the general rule of thumb is, like a roundish, squarish thing to whack the ball with.
Okay, and speaking of the ball is approximately the size of a tennis ball, but it's plastic and it's hollow. And I was informed, and this was another one of those little twists that I had not even thought was something, but an indoor pickleball has fewer holes, but they are slightly larger than an outdoor pickleball.
Yep, just to confuse everyone.
Right. No. I'm assuming that's just aerodynamics or something. Yeah,
and for the people listening that wonder what a pickleball is, I've likened them to wiffle balls over in the States, or the balls that cats play with the holes in them. Yeah, they're similar to that, but a bigger version. But you're spot on. The indoor and outdoor balls are vastly different. I don't know why there's different numbers of holes. I can't tell you that, but
science.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah,
and. Again, this is me getting my head around what I actually witnessed last week. 512 competitors at the Queensland state titles. That's a massive number of people.
Yep.
388 medalists over the course of the weekend in all sorts of divisions, age divisions, doubles, mixed doubles, all of that sort of thing.
Yep. And
participants ranging in age from, I think it was 11 to 80 something?
Yeah, there's probably people older than 80, to be honest. The demographics for pickleball are quite literally anyone can play. I've done stuff with schools, so real littlies, and then I've gone into lifestyle villages where we're doing things with people that they've lost the passion for sport, and they say, look, it's just my age, I can't do it anymore, and then they find a passion again, and now they're getting involved in tournaments. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And how did you yourself get involved in it? By just stumbling across it one day? Or?
Pretty much. So my partner worked, there's a local indoor sports facility in Albion, just down the road, and she was a netball umpire there. And there was this weird little tennis court, basically. It's the same size as a badminton court.
Yep.
For any badminton players tuning in. But essentially, she was like, what on earth is that? And we gave it a go. And we both come from a wide history of sports, and we were addicted immediately. I gave up all my other sports and have been hooked ever since.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, phenomenal growth. I was reading somewhere, I think it's 4.8 million active participants in the USA at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's actually I don't know how accurate it is, but there is a new stat that's just been released by one of the big pickleball leagues in America that's the growth is phenomenal. Like in the last 4 years, it's something that I don't know if sports have seen it in the last 30 odd years, just the sheer percentage of growth to the point now. You mentioned the tournament, that was the largest in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's crazy how quickly the Australian scene's growing.
Yeah, well, I think, again, being an accountant, the numbers sort of haven't appealed to me, but I think I read somewhere that in the last 12 months, pickleball in Australia increased in numbers of participants by something like 37% on the previous year, and it was a similar number for the year before that.
Yep.
So that is massive growth in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but the event that happened a couple of years ago where we were all indoors a fair bit actually had a positive for pickleball, because it was one of the few sports that we were allowed to go outside and play.
Right.
So that sport, it actually really benefited, whereas the Victorian and other states, they struggled a little bit, but South East Queensland especially just absolutely blossomed.
Oh, excellent stuff.
And is there a like people wanting to say they're right, I want to go try pickleball, are there designated like you say there's one at Albion?
Yep.
But are they obviously they'd be all around Brisbane and South East Queensland now?
Yeah, that's correct. Like, I'm actually the president of Morayfield Pickleball Club, so we have a club out at Caboolture, but for Brisbane itself, you've got Brisbane Pickleball Club, which are a huge group, and they're lovely guys as well to get involved with. They essentially have, it's like well over 13, 14 plus venues just for Brisbane.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter where you are in Brisbane, there's games to be had.
Yeah, good stuff.
In terms of venue availability, I know we've had discussions with folks from the basketball community that are screaming out for the need for more courts because they've got so many people wanting to be involved in the sport and they can't put on the games because they haven't got venues for it. Pickleball being both indoor and outdoor, I mean, the indoor you're sort of competing in that same space as the basketball folk for territory, but because it's also outboard, is that why pickleball's been able to continue growth?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And we are having similar problems to obviously the basketball guys in that we are essentially competing with other sports. So I mentioned we're the same size as a badminton court. So you can typically fit 2 to 4 pickleball courts on one tennis court.
Yep.
So tennis, we have a lot of cooperation with. But yeah, things like netball courts, even car parks. Like there's just a concrete slab is literally all you need.
Can we use the 4ZZZ car park as well?
Oh man, I haven't had a look, but I'd be more than happy to have some games. Yeah.
That's a case of, and again, another stat from the championships that I love because I got the stat sent to me. 1.4 kilometres of tape laid on the courts to convert what was there into pickleball courts. 1.4 kilometres.
Wow.
Yeah, because of the, as I mentioned, the venue availability as we're still growing, the crazy thing is we have all the players but nowhere to put them. Mm-hmm. So we have to utilise a bit of creative thinking and utilise tape for the time being. There are some purpose-built courts like UQ, the university. They have 2 purpose-built courts, for example. But until we get a big facility with plenty of courts, tape it is.
Okay. So we've got a way around finding a space to play. We've got heaps of people wanting to play. And the next hurdle that normally hits a sport is getting yourself some referees or umpires. But again, blew my mind watching Queensland state titles, the number of matches that were self-refereed and self-refereed effectively. Like the players on both sides of the nets agreeing, yes, that was out, or yes, that was in, or and congratulating each other on a good shot, or commiserating on a near miss and all of that sort of thing. And I thought, this is an incredible sport because it just seemed to... it was highly competitive, and yet there was still a camaraderie from all participants.
Yeah, spot on. And that's probably the biggest, thing that drew me into pickleball when I, besides the game being really fun, was the actual community. Like I said, we've got a wide variety of age demographics. We've also got para pickleball, so you can play with, it doesn't matter your physical ability, you can play. But the community is so welcoming. So like you mentioned, we literally had Queensland States, we're playing for sheep stations, but everyone's still cheering each other on. It's really unique. Like I said, I played a lot of sports, and this is the first one I played where it's like, okay, this is really cool. Like I can cheer everyone on.
Yeah, no, that's great to see that kind of sportsmanship across across the sport.
Yeah. Now, it was the Queensland state title, so it would be remiss of us not to mention a couple of the notable performers from that titles. Now, the information that's come through to me is that we had 2 Triple Crown winners out of the tournament. Wesley Vine won the Open men's singles, won the men's doubles, and also took part in the mixed doubles and won that as well.
Yep.
Now, I do recall you pointing him out to me at the tournament and saying that he was a player of reasonably high standing, and you weren't mistaken.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. People come down and they play for the first time and they think they're pretty solid, and then they watch these guys play and it's like, oh, okay. It's a very humbling sport when you get into tournaments.
Absolutely. And Bruce Winther was the other Triple Crown winner. Men's seniors, men's senior doubles, and mixed senior doubles.
Yep.
So well done to both of those guys. That's incredible performance. Para pickleball, Dion Rowetti was the winner in that one. Women's open singles, Ludovica Schiacchi. Shaki. Okay, thank you. But yeah, again, a great thing to watch. I imagine it would be huge fun to play. So we will make sure that we put up some links for local pickleball. Well, Queensland Pickleball is probably the place to start, and then they will be able to direct you to a pickleball association in your backyard, if you like. Quite bizarrely, I've discovered that there are probably about 3 or 4 in my very own backyard, which is...
Yep.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, you wouldn't realise that there are... in southeast Queensland, there's clubs literally everywhere, but the greater Queensland region, there's pretty much every major town has a club. So, if you're an ex-tennis or table squash player, whatever, this is definitely a sport that will be growing in your community soon.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And a big tournament coming up in Yeppoon, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll be covering the Yeppoon Pickleball Festival. That's next weekend, and it goes for 2 weeks. So we've got the seniors for the first weekend, and then what we call the Queensland Pickleball Tour the weekend after that.
Okay.
The seniors is going to be an absolute blast. It's going to be such a fun event. And then the QPT is a little bit more, think like your state championships.
Yep.
It's like a tour like that to build up. Yeah. So, once again, sheep stations to be played for.
Now, the burning question. The pickle. I was looking everywhere at the tournament for the pickle. There was no pickle. And my research tells me... yeah, probably. My research tells me that nobody really knows why it's called pickleball.
Well, it's kind of an urban myth. My understanding is that... So, this game was developed in the States, right? And... it was I think it was in the 70s, or maybe a little bit earlier.
I think my research, the research team said 1965.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
there you go.
That sounds about
well
right.
done, research team.
Yeah, there you go. So the name pickle is actually from a dog, like a little puppy.
Yeah.
So essentially, my understanding is that there was a couple or a group of friends that may have played tennis and just wanted to sort of change it to a bit of more of a smaller format. Happened to create a cool game, which we've all done it, right? We've all made some quirky thing, and their dog happened to be called Pickle or Pickles, I think,
and probably chase the ball around.
Yeah, spot on. And they've named it pickleball, and I don't know if those guys are still playing or what, but they're probably like, wow, look, this is huge now. But there you go, it's named after a dog. So
fantastic, and thank goodness the dog didn't have an offensive name.
No, that's
true.
It's much more catchy than Roverball too, by the way.
It would be, yeah.
No, but look, highly recommended. As I said, I couldn't believe what I was watching, and I would highly recommend for anybody, get out there, have a look at it, have a go at it. Quite amazing.
Yeah, it's a really good sport for families, so it doesn't matter. I've literally seen games where grandpa is taking on granddaughter, and it's a competitive game. Like, it's just one of those unique sports where anyone can play, and typically played in a doubles format. So it's really social. You play with your mates and get involved. Yeah, it's a good one.
Fantastic.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you for joining us to introduce pickleball to the Ballzzz in the Air audience.
Yeah.
It's, as I said, it's one of those sleeping giants that I'm sure many of us have missed along the way. I think at this point we need to take it down a notch, calm the excitement in the studio.
It's 9:30, 4ZZZ, Ballzzz in the Air.
That's us. Time for a message and then a track.